Well, we now have an 11 a.m. advisory in on Tropical Storm Francine, still maintaining tropical storm status as it is currently situated just to the east of Mexico and to the southeast of Texas down in the western Gulf of Mexico. Francine still maintaining winds sustained of 65 miles an hour, so I haven't seen an uptick on that as of the last couple advisories, but the pressure is down 2 millibars, so a slight indication of some strengthening associated with Francine and continuing its path north-northeast, now moving at about 8 miles an hour, so a little bit faster as we get into closer to the midday hour here on Tuesday. We're still seeing a very similar path, a very similar cone path right now, just a little bit of a shift to this eastward, and also worth noting that forecasting Francine to make landfall as a Category 1 as opposed to a Category 2 storm. So this landfall will happen somewhere on the Louisiana Gulf Coast. We're talking about Wednesday evening. So right now that timestamp looks to be 7 p.m. with 85-mile-an-hour sustained winds. Obviously some gusts that are going to be a little bit breezier up to maybe about the 100-mile-an-hour mark. But this looks to be just after landfall right there. So expecting landfall sometime around Wednesday, 5, 6, maybe even into 7 o'clock, depending on how Francine does progress over this very warm water that we do have present in the Gulf of Mexico. So due to this very slight shift eastward, we are seeing some of the watches and warnings, whether the tropical storm watches or warnings or hurricane watches and warnings, extended further over to the east, so now including areas on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and even the Alabama Gulf Coast. And then if this is to continue eastward, obviously areas on the Florida Gulf Coast would have some of those impacts as well. But right now the main concern area remains this Gulf Coast area of Louisiana outlined in that pink. That is going to be hurricane force conditions forecasted for areas just to the southwest of New Orleans and down to the south of Baton Rouge, maybe even going on up into Baton Rouge as you go into the state of Louisiana. But these warnings extending all the way down the Gulf Coast, whether you're in Texas, even to the areas just to the east of San Fernandino or Fernandino over on the Mexico Gulf Coast, rather, I should say. And taking a look at the spaghetti plots, you can kind of see this very, very slight eastward shift. So you can definitely see this red line in the middle, the GFS line. That's going to make landfall somewhere further over to the east, maybe about 100 miles or so of where it was initially forecasted. The Euro still following suit, more so in that kind of central Gulf Coast area of Louisiana, but definitely closer to the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. And once we get through the weekend into the beginning of next week, as you can see, definitely a good amount of disagreement. The GFS was hinting at a loop around back here, and then the Euro still kind of getting jumbled up all in there. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that, but just noting that there is still a good amount of uncertainty that far out with the track of Francine. Here in central Georgia, well, when can we expect the rain? Starting to move in the late afternoon into the early evening hours on Wednesday is when we're going to see those first outer bands of rain. Going to get that cloud cover building in steadily throughout today and to kick off tomorrow. And then once we get into Thursday morning, looking like a pretty good coverage of rain all over here in central Georgia and some pockets of heavier rain in those yellows and oranges that you see further to our southwest. But the trend with this will be the further west that you live is where the heavier rainfall amount totals are going to be, as you're going to be closer to the center of circulation associated with Francine. And then once we get into Thursday evening, we're kind of looking at an on and off pattern, so not continuous rain throughout the evening hours into the overnight hours on Friday. We're definitely looking at some rounds of showers, maybe a little bit of a 3-4 hour break, and then some more rain encompassing the area here in central Georgia. Now let's take it long range. This is the GFS and the Euro, and as you can see, Francine going to move over land. That's actually where the center of circulation is, but you can see the widespread impact that this storm is going to have all the way down through Georgia and into the Florida Panhandle as well. Looking like that Friday is going to have that on and off rain, just like I was talking about. But then after Francine kind of disorganizes and dissipates into a remnant low pressure system, we're still looking at a good amount of moisture to be present here in the southeast of the United States. So that's why you're seeing the GFS really thinking that we're going to continue to see some rain on into Saturday and Sunday. Not of a lot of agreement on this, but I do believe we are going to have sufficient moisture content in the atmosphere to continue to sprout some showers, maybe even some low end thunderstorms as we take it through those next couple of days. So we're going to continue to keep an eye out on how Francine transitions into a Category 1 hurricane and how much it does continue to intensify before making landfall, but also really keeping a close eye on the projected path of Francine and if it goes any further eastward to have any further implications here in central Georgia.